Welcome back to another episode here on the Heart and Hustle podcast. I'm Ephraim. We got Miss Sarah in the building. How you doing, Sarah?
Hey, great. It's so good to be with you.
Same. It's always exciting to just be able to have this virtual call from with someone from somewhere in the United States. Where are you located, Sarah?
I'm actually in Burlington, Vermont right now for the summer, but I live in New York City for the rest of the year.
What is the difference in weather?
Oh, so much better up here.
Yeah.
It's just perfect. Beautiful. It's probably 75 degrees and sunny here today.
So do you do like half the time in Vermont and half the time in New York?
As best I can.
What a
Yes. Yes.
blessing. How long have you been doing
Yeah.
that?
Just about 4 years now, and it's been so lovely. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm gonna have to jump on that bandwagon and find somewhere else because I'm in Orlando most of the time and it's hot and humid all the time.
Yes. I bet in the winter though, I'll be wondering how you're doing.
It's still hot during the winter. We have like 3 weeks of winter. It's really funny because it's always hot for us. Summer just becomes
Yeah.
even hotter, but it's just like one of those things that you kind of get used to as well.
Kind of just
You
the
just stay
norm.
home. I'm saying, yeah, it is. It's truly the norm. That's why we have so many water parks and things going on here. But Sarah, what organization are you representing today?
So I'm at the Thomas E. Smith Foundation, and our work centers on bettering the lives of those living with paralysis.
And how did you get to this space?
Oh, it's a long story.
Let's go. We got
It's
30 minutes at
interesting.
least.
I started my career in Burlington, Vermont, actually, where I was the summer reading coordinator. And it was probably the most interesting job I really ever could have had at that stage. And I was an English major, was really into reading, and thought, how cool. You get to work at the library, get to meet kids across the city. And my job was to kind of bring the library to communities, especially those with low income. And I realized very quickly that it is not summer reading that people have on their top priority list. It really is things like food and shelter and dental care and things of that nature. And it was around then that I thought, okay, so you can do a lot of good work at the program level, but to really make change on some of these big societal issues, we're going to have to really focus on making change at the policy level. And so that's when I moved to New York City to be part of an organization focused on really building evidence on what works to improve the lives of low-income people by way of policy. And it was an incredible experience. Got to do lots of work across every domain you can think of, from education on through to other parts of our society. And around that time, maybe 5 years later, I started to say to myself, okay, so 10-year studies are really important, but that takes a long time.
Yeah.
And I got really interested in health. And since then, have been working at the intersection of kind of what people call the social determinants of health, which are really what makes you well, and community health. And have been working on projects that invest in innovation in those spaces. And it was around that time that health began to be very focused on outcomes and gave us the opportunity to say, okay, how do we make change that's not just by way of the hospital? How do we think about wellness in the community? And it's been really exciting ever since. And so I joined the Thomas E. Smith Foundation probably about 2.5 years ago. And I had been at the intersection of every single health issue that causes inequity. And I remember thinking, access to breast cancer care, for example. If you're someone with low income, you likely don't have paid time off, for example.
Yeah.
So out of pocket, people are having to spend, their time losing money. And it ended up being something like $100,000 someone could incur out of pocket just to get breast cancer care. And I remember thinking, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. How could we possibly allow that in our society, that it's at that 100,000 or you don't get the treatment? And then my best friend from growing up had her better half had a spinal cord injury. And never had I ever met anyone who had that type of injury. And of course, I thought 100,000 was crazy with breast cancer. With a spinal cord injury, people are paying out of pocket, depending on their age at the time of injury and how long they live, essentially, upwards of $6 million out of pocket. And I thought that was egregious. And, this friend of mine, they had to find a place to get him to be able to walk again. And not every community has that kind of facility. And so I began to learn a lot about the issue then and became very passionate about really focusing on how do we shed a light on this issue? How do we make some change? And how do we let people know that this is even happening? And so it's been really a pleasure to be able to be part of the community that's focused on raising awareness, but also changing the game for how care is delivered for people who have this type of injury.
Where does the passion for people start?
Where does
It
the
looks
passion
like
for
you.
people start? Oh, what a good question. I grew up in a community where it was very progressive. I grew up in Portland, Maine. And I think that that sense of community was just part of the fabric of the entire space and where I was. And where I grew up, it was a very good mix of people with different income levels, people of different racial backgrounds. And it was a really accepting community. And there was a lot of responsibility on the part of community members to take part in different
Mhm.
parts of the social safety net, for example. It was a big part of our schooling growing up. And I think that's where it probably started. But, I think there's a saying that's something like we're as good as the worst rung of our ladder. And I think that if we want to have a good place to live, you've got to be part of the solution.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, and it's hard work. We were just kind of talking about it, especially when you're trying to put on these fundraisers. It's like you ask yourself, "What am I doing? Is
What
this
am
going
I
to
doing
work?"
growing
Yeah,
upstream? Does
but we
anybody
we
care about this?
yeah, and then you realize people do, right?
Yes,
One
they
thing I
certainly
I
do.
heard very early on, I guess getting into this work, was from my father-in-law, and he says, "Just remember that there's 1,000 of you, but there's 100,000 people that are not with you." Right. And
Mhm.
that's what it feels like sometimes. It's like, where
That's
are the people that do care? Because it is very hard to get those people in a room sometimes. But when they're
Mhm.
in a room, just the impact that is truly happening, the collaboration piece of it, the resources piece that sometimes people don't even know what's in their own backyard, what's happening to people around them.
Mhm.
Because sometimes we stay so much into our own,
That's so
little
true.
circles or whatever that may look like. So you being in this space of just kind of almost being at the mountaintop and saying, "Hey, this is happening." Do
Yes,
you ever
for sure.
feel doubt, Sarah, as you're doing this? Like, what does that look like? How do you quiet the noise?
Yes. Every single day there's an easy out for having doubt, right? There's the healthcare system. It's so vast. It's so commercial. It's so difficult. So, for example, you see someone go by in a wheelchair. You would have no idea that oftentimes people have to pay out of pocket for a wheelchair. That just
Mm,
sounds wrong, right?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And that gives you doubt sometimes because you're like, how am I ever going to make a difference in this? And another thing, every 5 years, you can have a replacement wheelchair, for example. 5 years is a very long time if you use the same piece of equipment every single day. Imagine like you had to wear the same jeans every day for 5 years and,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
expect it to still work, right? There'll be holes in it that has to be repaired. All of those things can take so much time and put people on the sidelines. And so it can feel really daunting to be in the field that we're in just because these pieces of equipment are so expensive. A wheelchair can be sometimes $30,000 or more, depending on if it's a power chair or not. And so the fact that organizations like us have to fill in the gaps that you would think insurance should cover can be very daunting. But it's also amazing when you see, to your point, when people come together. So
Yep.
over the last year or so, there's been a lot of work around the right to repair. So having a timely access to repair to wheelchairs, and that has made such a difference in the lives of so many people. And on an issue that you and I are fortunate enough to not have to worry about, right? So imagine you're waiting months to have your wheelchair replaced. We have a friend who she's in her 30s. She uses a wheelchair and she told us that she wasn't going out to parties or meeting people or doing all the things that we take for granted that people that age should be doing because she was so worried her wheelchair was going to give out and she needed it for her job.
Wow.
And so we got her a new one and that made all the difference. So when we do have doubt, just know that the impact, even if it's one to one, us and this friend of ours, it's huge. It means she can go out, meet friends, maybe meet a partner that she wants to build a life with. I mean, these
Yeah.
are the things that at the end of our days we care about. And so when we think about what do we do to come together, how do we make a difference, even if it's one person, that
Mhm.
sheds such light on the issue. And it also really does quell the doubt that you may have over time.
And the Thomas Smith Foundation, like, what does it look like for someone that is wanting to get this assistance? Like, I'm going to the website, I'm calling. Is it just kind of referral based? How does someone know about it?
Yeah, so we have a website and we accept applications on a rolling basis. We have
Okay.
a section where you can tell us a little bit about your story, and we have a committee of individuals who are living with the impacts of spinal cord injury and paralysis who join us every month to help us make the best decision that we can about the grants. And so we do as many of those as we possibly can. Most of the time, though, the reason we don't fund something is only budgetary. I've never yet met someone who had so much money that they, didn't need a grant, or that
Yeah.
the opportunity for a wheelchair wouldn't make a huge difference in their lives. Really, it comes down to the available resources. So to your point, we're doing the most that we can to raise additional dollars to do more of that work. But in addition to that, we do a lot of work in terms of focusing on groundbreaking research. So in the SCI space, or spinal cord injury, there's a lot of clinical trials that are underway that are pretty proven, but because of the technology, they need to be done. The clinical care needs to be done in a setting that's, monitored and so forth. So we do, on occasion, fund access to those studies so that people can have the best chance at mobility as possible. And we also do a lot of work, to the point around doubt, around changing the game. So we call it our redefining possible area of work. And what it is chipping away at some of the access issues. So not only the insurance piece, but really thinking through, okay, for example, if you are just a regular individual and you want to go to a concert, if you're in a chair, often people standing in front of you block your view. And so we're doing a big concert in Boston at a place called Park City, which is a really cool outdoor venue, really fun. And we're working with the venue to ensure that the space that people in chairs can occupy is right at the front, and that the whole thing is turned on a switch such that it's all about belonging. And so thinking about how we, with very small effort, can make a huge difference in someone's experience, someone's day, someone's life, those are the things we want to do too. So we do a lot of the grant making work, but also we try to focus on how can we change the world even one concert at a time.
Wow, yeah, it must take a lot of work, but no, that's actually pretty cool when you think about it, right? People do not think about the bigger picture sometimes. They just may think about just kind of that moment, but when you really expand what that life looks like for that individual,
Yeah.
like they really want to live a comfortable life without some of the hassles. So you guys are really just making sure those hassles are kind of being shipped at, because people don't think about it, right, until they're
Exactly. You
there.
don't think about it until you have that experience. We call it, it's an if you know cause, and we
Mhm.
want more people to be under the tent.
And when you mention that, like, is it that there's not a lot of organizations doing what you guys are doing? Is that why it's become so difficult and such a challenge as well? Just because you guys
Yeah,
are kind of
that's a
building
really good
this?
question. Yeah. So only about 2% of philanthropic dollars in this country, so private charity money,
Mhm.
goes to support any disability related cause. And so when you think about that, that's, children with intellectual
Yeah.
disabilities, that's all kinds of, spectrum based disabilities and so forth. So when you really drill it down, there are very few organizations
Wow.
focused on people living with the impact of spinal cord injury and who are living with paralysis for other diagnostic reasons. And what's interesting about that is it means that there's such a huge opportunity to make a change, and that small changes can make a big difference at this point in time. But there really are only a few organizations, and many of them are very small. And so one of our big efforts over the coming year is to really focus on how do we work together? How do we,
Yeah.
thread the needle such that organizations that are doing a lot of really amazing work around sports, for example, could partner with us, that we're really focused on necessary health care equipment and things of that nature, to really come together and support people in meaningful ways, that even if we don't have, $1 billion, which would probably take more than that to solve this issue overnight, coming together, we're stronger. And I think that's a huge opportunity in our field, which is one that's, very underfunded. But I think it's an opportunity everywhere across the spectrum of our communities.
Do you know how many people you guys served in 2025, or even how many you guys served thus far in 2026?
Yeah, it depends on how you shake the numbers. So we usually support about 100 people in terms of grants. So when you think about that, it sounds like, okay, 100 people, that's not very many. But again, when you're thinking about a wheelchair that costs $25,000, or a track chair, which is one that we purchased recently, enabled someone to get back to work because they work on a construction site, and a regular wheelchair just never could go through that kind of terrain, that's $15,000 to $20,000. So when you think about
Mm.
the reach, while it might be a lower number, it's really interesting when you think about the impact that it has on an individual. And so that's just our grant program. And then we support hundreds of families. It's about 1,000 families over the last year when they want to navigate the system. Right now, the system is really difficult to get through one care setting to another, mostly because a spinal cord injury is multisystemic. So it hurts all kinds of different parts of your body in different ways, and it connects your health to different parts of the healthcare system that don't always talk very well to one another. And it can be difficult to navigate. Where should I go if I want to, get extensive physical therapy to be stronger, to be able to feel good about going out, to have less pain, to maybe gain mobility? This is all new. Most people don't
Yeah.
know a lot about this. So we do a lot of work to support people navigating and doing that kind of thing. And we also do these big events. So we have lots of folks who come and join us to raise money and awareness. And we're really fortunate to have them join us in this too.
Yeah, no, for sure. And something that is still, as you mentioned, still growing, still on the up and up, of course. Um, how many people are part of this team? There's a lot. There's a lot of making sure people are educated in this space, making sure that we could get these grants in place. We can spread the word. Like I mentioned, a lot of boots on the ground through these events, things like that. Like, what
Yeah.
does the team look like on the back end?
Yeah. So we are a small and mighty team of 4 people. Our namesake, Tom Smith, was actually, we think, the only person in medical history to have been paralyzed not once, but 3 different times.
Oh my God.
And he's truly an inspiration. He, is the spirit behind our mission, which is he had access to care that enabled him to walk today. And not everybody has that access. And so when we think about our work, that's really at the core of it. How do we make sure that everybody has access to the kind of care that helps them reach the goals they have, right? And not everyone will be able to have the same result, but everybody should have access to the same opportunity. And so when you think about my friend who I was telling you about, who
Hmm.
had to fly to another community just to have access to that kind of mobility unlocking clinical care, it's unbelievable that that would be the case. And if it wasn't for family members or other supporters, they wouldn't have been able to do that. And so our work is to make sure as many people as we can have that kind of access that he did.
Is Thomas still day to
Yeah, so
day?
he's on the team. So he's on the team every day. He's
Wow.
unstoppable. It's
Love
truly
it.
amazing. He's walked the Boston Marathon, for example, 8 times and is a real inspiration to
Wow.
all of us. And so his brother Chris, who is a caregiver to him, is also on our team. He leads our advancement efforts. And we have Jenna, who is our really senior engagement person. So she does a lot of work around our grants and events. And so the 4 of us are the champions of this work every single day. And we have 9 really wonderful board of director members who do a lot of volunteering for our work too. So we would be lost without all of them as well.
What does Thomas teach you? I mean, what a leader in itself, right? To kind of walk, not only just talk the talk, but he's literally walking the walk on
It's
and
truly
showing people.
remarkable to see what something like that does to a person. I've met lots of people over the time here at the foundation who have gone through remarkable journeys. But when I think about Tom, the thing that inspires me the most about him is he doesn't ever have one bad day. Every day is a good day. And he is so positive, sees through anything that's, gone wrong and really
Hmm.
sees the bright side. And I'll never forget one time we were at this presentation. It was a funding opportunity and the 2 of us were kind of sharing what our work is and how we get it done and so forth. And someone asked him, "How are you not angry?" And I thought, "Oh, I've never thought to ask that." And please tell me the answer, because that's, you could see being
Yeah.
very angry if that happened to you 3 times. And he said, because I know what it's like to not have the outcomes that I have. And he thinks
Mm.
about people who are paralyzed from the neck down, for example, and he's walking today. And so he lives with this purpose that is contagious and I think spreads its way through all that we do. And we're very person centered for that reason. And when I think about that, when you were talking about doubt earlier and feeling down about, are we ever going to make a difference?
Yeah.
That makes a difference every single day. So I try to take that into the spirit of how I approach my work. And it's made a huge difference just in terms of unlocking how do we think about this, right? And so it's really inspiring to have that perspective.
I mean, you're in a difficult situation because anytime you think of doubt, you look across the table and it's Thomas there. You're like, what am I doubting here? Like,
I know, I know. If you ever feel like I'm kind of tired today, you're like, no, imagining the hard work that he put into where he is
yeah.
today is it's really inspiring. Yeah.
And I think you may have mentioned it. How old is the organization?
So we've been in business since 2010, but only the
Wow.
last few years fully staffed. We were really fortunate to receive a capacity building grant to really grow our operations, which has been a substantial, just a wonderful opportunity for us to really grow and double down on what we've learned over the years that really works to support people. And so what's interesting is there are lots of small foundations that
Hmm.
are across operating very similarly, just with volunteers. Maybe they have 1 year fundraiser. And having the opportunity to grow from that to a full scale organization is truly amazing. It's very rare that organizations receive that kind of support. And it's a real testament to the work that Tom and others on the team have done over the years to support people living with paralysis. And so it's been just a joy to be part of the journey and the inaugural executive director.
And what do you like? What are some of the goals that you want to see get done? I mean, you being in that seat, really kind of heading this machine, is no easy task. But I can imagine you took in this responsibility with things in mind. What are those things that you want to accomplish?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Every day there's the one-on-one goals that you have. So I want someone like the friend I was talking about to have access to doing all the things that she wants to do. So those are the kinds of goals that kind of fuel your day. We get to talk to and interview people who could be a beneficiary of a grant. And hearing what it will do for them is so inspiring. But when I think about what are our broad goals, there are too few leaders in this space
Yeah.
really trying to drive the systems change that we know is so important for this. And so over the next year, we're going to focus a little bit more narrowly on how we support individuals and use that information and data to really inform our work in our redefining possible area to champion, say, having access to the wheelchair, for example, since we were talking about that. What does that mean several years from now for an individual? Can we share not only stories about individuals, but what the impact is on them, their community, their family members, such that we can have a larger change making agenda, not only locally, but nationally as well? And what's exciting too is we've worked over the last year or so to look at what are kind of the upfront costs that we invest in a person, and what does that mean in terms of savings in the healthcare system. So for every dollar that we invest in an individual, we know with absolute certainty, without any confusion, that it saves $10 in the healthcare space from avoidable, preventable hospital stays, for example, having a wheelchair that fits you, that is safe, that has a cushion that keeps your body from having pressure sores, for example, can save you 2 weeks in the hospital. And that's a real huge cost. So what we want to do over the next year or two is help share that data and inform the field that, hey, doing right is not only good, but it also is financially beneficial, right? And so that's one of the big goals we have, is to really focus on that over the next couple of years.
Data's everything, right? That's just how we get
For
people
sure.
to when people get to see their where their impact is going, where their dollars are going, it just kind of almost keeps that moving forward. Would you say that? Because I think that's one of the toughest things in nonprofits is the data part of it. Would you guys
Mhm.
say you guys done a good job at just kind of structuring that foundation to keep moving?
Yes. So we're very fortunate that we received that grant to be able to build out our data reporting capacity. So we had a budget to build in databases
That's
and
good.
utilize those tools. But even if you don't have those, it feels like nowadays there's so much better access to tools that are free and available. And I think as we do our work, the more we can quantify it, the more we can share our benefit with the world. And unfortunately, most of that is financial, right? So when it comes down to it, what does it mean to invest in a person, a community, and what have you, has to be borne out in data.
Yeah.
And I know donors are more sophisticated now and they want to see that level of impact. And so being able to report on it is great, but it's also really important to have an intentionality. So when you make the investment, you know what the theory is behind exactly what kind of change you're trying to make, so that the data is obvious from the beginning what you're trying to
Yeah.
collect. Sometimes, I used to work with community health centers a lot, and they used to do these incredible projects. And sometimes the project would sort of meander, right? You have this funding to do as something really cool with patients. And then you start to learn from the patients that actually it's something like this, and you kind of make turns along the way. And you haven't invested in, okay, what is the theory that we're trying to change? you might be collecting the wrong data from the outset because now the problem you're solving has changed. And so it's just keeping an eye on what are you trying to do and what is the intended outcome, and just trying to make sure you're always collecting the right data. And then two, I think sometimes foundations in particular can collect too much data. So just because you can collect it doesn't mean you should burden people with that fact. So I think the fewer things you collect, but the ones that
Okay.
make the most sense are what I think has helped me be able to kind of make the case for support.
What what do you do outside of all this? It seems like this is you. This is your bread and butter. I can imagine you wake up just thinking about the next step. But when you turn it off, what is Sarah doing? Like, what does people maybe not know that Sarah loves or something?
Oh, if you know me, you know my entire basement is full of bikes. So I love bike riding so much, and not in a competitive, like super fast way, but here in Burlington, Vermont, there's a beautiful bike path that's along the lake. And you know what you're not doing when you're on your bike is you're not looking on your phone. You're not
Yeah. Okay.
scrolling on Instagram or anything like that. You just are taking in the outdoors. And
Yeah.
I absolutely love to spend as much time as possible doing that because it lets your mind just like relax. And some of your best ideas come when you're not on your phone and you're actually enjoying the space that is outside. I think someone said on a podcast I listened to recently that we spend 90 something percent of our day indoors.
Yep.
And so it's no wonder that that's the first thing that comes to mind that I love doing because we are so much indoors, and so being able to be
Yeah.
outside is amazing.
Good. That makes me, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, but I'm at that space as well. It's like I love the outside and like I love to go
Yes,
hiking, but it is those
so
things that
good for
really
you.
allow you to turn off. I
Yes.
was recently doing with my daughter. I was doing a puzzle, and I can't tell you the last time I did a puzzle,
Oh,
but I sat
cool.
there and
Uh-huh.
I'm one of like very competitive, so it's like I'm gonna finish this puzzle, and I finished the puzzle, and at the end of it, an hour and a half later, I'm like, wow, this was actually relaxing. Like I need to
It
get
really
more puzzles,
is.
right? Because when you can just forget about everything else and kind of focus on the little things, and
Yes, and
sometimes
get in
it's
the
because we're
zone
always
like that. I love it.
yeah, yeah. So I hear you. It's like sometimes you just have to really turn it off, and it is putting the
Yes.
phone down. It is just quieting the noise. It is just kind of, you know, being one with nature. I think so many times
Mhm.
we've lost that, right? I can
For sure.
imagine, Sarah, you were the individual riding the bike outside, scooters, whatever,
Yes,
enjoying the outdoors, and I think that's what's kind of being lost nowadays is really the ability to be outside and soak that
for
in.
sure.
There's
So
there's
important.
something beautiful in that for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Um, how do people get involved? I mean, we talk about not just donors, but maybe volunteer needs. Maybe there's people to donate other things. Like, how do people get involved into what you guys are doing? Websites, socials, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so the Thomas E. Smith Foundation, we're found at just thomasesmithfoundation.org. You can see
Hmm.
about our coming events and so forth. But as far as learning more about just the spinal cord injury community, people living with paralysis, people living with mobility impairments, it's important to just pay attention, look around, make sure you think about the environment. I was part of a committee for a school thing that my children are doing, and they were building a new wing in our school, and not one person had thought about, okay, what if a child has a wheelchair? And I'm sure it would have come up eventually, but we can all be advocates even if it's in our space, in our homes, in our schools, in our communities. And September is spinal cord awareness month, so in every community across this country there are so many celebrations, policy events, things of that nature. And if you want to get involved with your local community, it would mean all the difference because there again, this is an issue that really isn't front of mind for most people. And there are so many organizations doing good work, especially in the advocacy space, policy change. Get involved with things that are already happening in your community. It makes a huge difference. And so, whether you're volunteering to support advocacy efforts, supporting us financially, or coming to events, even fun ones like our concert, it makes a huge difference not only for the financial benefit to the organization, but also just being aware of the issue. So coming to our event, you'll see that everyone in wheelchairs are in the front. That'll be a different experience for
Yeah,
folks.
yeah.
And so I invite everyone to just really think about things in different ways. And when you see a wheelchair go by, just know like, I will not accept that this space is not accessible. I will not accept that that's not covered by insurance, and be part of the change making agenda that we all should be a part of.
Sarah, thank you so much for the information and what you're really doing to make a difference. Sometimes we don't realize we're just trucking along and we're kind of, almost like those blinders on, don't know what's going on. We just have this mission.
Mhm.
And sometimes from the outside, you just got to kind of receive your flowers. So thank you for what you're doing. I actually know someone that's in this space, actually just had surgery his whole life. He's been wheelchair bound and just received this surgery where they tried to straighten up his spinal, put screws on him, and all these like.
Wow.
He's 15 years old now and he's gone through so many surgeries. And so when you talk about that, I am very well aware and seen it firsthand. And I think I've learned a lot today just by talking to you. I'm actually going to pass this organization to his mom because his mom has also had to kind of like,
I love that.
fight this battle alone,
Yes.
right? And
It
find
is a
where her
fight.
son and the
Yes.
schools and where
Mhm.
could he still live this normal life,
Exactly.
without hindering him. So what you guys are
Um,
doing, I hear it, I see it, I live it, and I
yay.
truly
Well,
appreciate it,
thank you
Sarah.
so much for having me. What you're doing is so important, and sharing these stories means all the world. So we really appreciate you telling our story, and having me here today has been so fun.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I appreciate you. My name's Benny Frayne. This is Sarah. Make sure you guys check out their website. Can imagine their socials to continue to just make impacts in a space that people sometimes just don't realize is happening around them. All right. I'll catch you guys on the next one.
All right.
Laters.
Thanks so much.